Thank you. Yes, definitely. Hello. My name is Claire Algar. As Jean said, I'm the Executive Director of a charity called Reprieve. And just to give you the credentials that I have to talk about this subject at all, Reprieve essentially acts for a large number of people who are detained in Guantanamo Bay. We have acted for 50 people who were there and who are now out. We currently act for a further 30. We also track rendition flights and try to find the secret prisons which are out there in which this torture is taking place. And it was extraordinary watching that torture scene because it rang true. You know, our clients whom I have met and who come into our office have spoken about the things that were in that performance, and it was really quite, well, I'm sure it was disturbing for everybody, but the two things that rang really true, the first one, and I'll come back to this chap in a minute, a guy called Binyan Mohammed, whom you might have heard of. He's the guy who came back, he was the first person who came back this year under President Obama. For a long time he was the only person who left under the Obama administration. A few more have left now. And he talked about being tortured in Morocco for days and weeks and months, and in fact eventually it was 18 months. And he told them everything that they wanted to know, and they kept torturing him. And he said in the end, you know, why are you doing this? I'll say anything you want me to say. You know, I've already told you everything I know. I've made stuff up when you wanted me to. Why do you keep doing this? And the answer that came back to him was, we want to control you even after you've left. And it's what this was. It's extraordinary stuff. The other thing, which is interesting, which Glenn alluded to, is the control over language. And I'll talk about this really briefly, but it is fascinating stuff, and it's great dinner party conversation. So, so take a hand up and you can even memorize it. The concept of controlling language so that you control the present and to some degree the future, or anyway, I'm trying to tie it in, and I think it does tie in with the Ministry of Love and so forth. The US has redefined torture, the previous administration, and there was torture, which it redefined to be extreme pain resulting in organ failure, impairment of bodily function, or death. And then there's everything else, which was known as enhanced interrogation techniques, or torture light. Torture light, including all the kind of psychological stuff. And again, I'll talk about psychological torture in a little while. But essentially, there are sort of extremes of temperature changes, which I guess is physical, but also I think was done specifically in order to strain people out. Sleep deprivation, an absolute chronic one. There was something called a frequent flyer program, where prisoners would be put in a room and then moved so that they didn't have time to get any sleep and couldn't sleep. Solitary confinement, waterboarding and water dousing. And God help us when we found out about the things, when Obama published the methods that were used, and you would have seen the kind of, I don't know, walling, which was hitting someone's head against a wall, but also the thing that really freaked me out was insecting, which involves putting somebody in a box with an insect. And it's that thing of, it's not the banality of evil, it's the creativity. You know, who thinks, right, get me some caterpillars. What we really want to do is, you know, I mean, and it's room 101 all over again. Anyway, so I've got some small ones here, which come under torture light. Exploiting individual phobias, actually room 101, but specifically in the Muslim world, setting dogs on people. Mild non-injurious contact, which is hitting someone. Relinquishing a detainee, which is rendering somebody or kidnapping somebody. Segregation, which is isolation. Sleep adjustment, which is sleep deprivation. Waterboarding I particularly like, actually, because Spanish Inquisition, the wonderful chaps you come back to when you want to talk about torture, because they knew how to do it really well, called it tortura del agua, literally water torture. The Nazi Gestapo called it, and you'll excuse my pronunciation, which is going to be wrong, but verschärfte Vernehmung. Literally, apparently, enhanced interrogation techniques, or sharpened interrogation techniques. And the Bush administration, as we know, also called it enhanced interrogation techniques. Really quickly, just to bring it home with this, they also redefined the term juvenile to mean somebody who was under 16, whereas the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which specifically deals with the concept of child soldiers, deals with people who are under 18. And we had a client, Mohammed al-Gharani, who left Guantanamo 2 weeks ago and he was captured when he was 14 years old and has spent 7 years in Guantanamo Bay between 14 and 21. And if you know 14-year-old children, they shouldn't be anywhere near Guantanamo Bay. The verb to ERF, ERF, Extreme Reaction Forces, the title given to the squads of military police who operate in Guantanamo Bay. A prisoner is ERFed when they commit minor disciplinary infractions, and it's one of the things actually that all of the clients that we have complain about, because common complaints include physical abuse, fractured bones, broken teeth, etc. And especially when people are now malnourished and so forth, when you get beaten up by guys who are in riot gear and helmets and so forth, obviously that's when accidents happen. In fact, there's a weird story about the ERF teams, which is that the only ERF guy who's ever suffered any kind of injury, because there's this whole thing about them being the worst people in the world, the only ERF guy who's ever suffered any injury was a guy who was asked by his commanding officer to pretend to be a prisoner, and who himself got ERFed, and who got his back fractured. So not a good position in which to be. Censorship, this was just a fun thing we tried to do. We tried to send in a bunch of books. Cinderella didn't get through. Jack and the Beanstalk, thought to be dangerously subversive. But also John Pilger, Jeremy Paxman, anything you try to send in. And I just bring that up because, again, it fits in with the 1984 thing. The concept of military commissions and combatant status review tribunals, CSRTs. People who are found not guilty are defined as no longer enemy combatants rather than not enemy combatants, and so they still don't have to leave. And I think Obama is a massive step forward, but it is worrying because he is still talking about indefinite detention and rendition, and I think that is an area we're moving backwards on. Suicide attempts, manipulative self-injurious behaviour. The suicide attempts dropped radically in 2003, and it was because they'd been redefined. And also hunger strikes as well, assisted feeding rather than hunger striking.